Hi, this is Marla Davis from the State Department of Education. This training is on our new high quality instructional materials initiative at the State Department. This training is designed for teachers, administrators, curriculum coordinators, textbook selection committees, parents, and even students. If there are any questions about the information herein, please email mdavis@mdek12.org. With all trainings at the State Department, we like to begin with our vision and mission in mind. Our vision is to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills they need to be successful in college and the workforce. Our mission is to provide the leadership necessary through the development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in a global community. All of our work at the State Department is funneled through our 6 strategic plan goals. As I continue through today's training, you will see how our HQIM, High Quality Instructional Materials Initiative, sits comfortably in all 6 of these goals. At this time, I would like for you to take a brief moment and find a scratch sheet of paper or a Post-it note and write down your thoughts around the following question. What does HQIM mean to you? As you brainstorm on that particular question, remember there are no wrong answers. Please place your thoughts around this question to the side as we progress through today's training. At this time, I will provide you with Mississippi's definition for high quality instructional materials and professional learning. The reason that we have coupled professional learning with our high quality materials initiative is because they go hand in hand. As we continue to adopt materials, we will also look at how professional learning, professional development, and trainings take place throughout the state. In the fall of 2017, the MDE adopted the following definition for HQIM and professional learning. This definition provides a frame of reference for all public schools and districts in how you will use that information when selecting resources for classroom use. We encourage you that as this training continues, that you consider how materials currently being used at the local level might meet this definition. The definition on the screen at this time is a definition that was created with our HQIM Task Force, Advisory Board, MDE staff, and teachers. As defined, materials that are aligned with the Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards that are externally validated, comprehensive, and include engaging texts, problems, and assessments are considered high-quality instructional materials. They can be used to identify students' areas of strengths and opportunities for growth. These materials are also sequentially mapped and designed to prepare students to graduate ready for college and the workforce. These materials are also educative for teachers and accessible to students with differentiated needs. Now, the words that you see highlighted on the screen represent those key words that define high-quality instructional materials and professional learning. Again, I would love for you to consider how the resources currently in use at the local level fit this definition. As we continue through the training, I want you to ask yourself, why are high-quality instructional materials important for all of us? Most explicitly, why are they important for parents? Why are they important for teachers? Why are high-quality instructional materials important for students and our educator prep programs? As we continue our push for high-quality instructional materials across the state, and you become in-depth as it relates to this initiative, we wanted to give you some talking points and some high-leverage consideration as it relates to what high-quality instructional materials look like. and why it is so very important for us as a state. One key note is that adopting high quality materials is a highly effective and ultimately a cost neutral strategy. Many of those high quality materials are already available online for free. And so switching to high quality materials can save money at the local level. High quality instructional materials, if they meet the demand, also build our teachers' content knowledge. So I would love for you to go back and consider the audience that was presented on the previous page. As teachers continue to review materials that are in use or those that will be up for adoption or use within the classroom, those materials should close the gap between the learning expectations for our students and the quality of instruction that is offered in the classroom. Teachers that enter the profession will be better prepared to hit the ground running if they have a really good understanding of what high quality instructional materials look like and how they can be used in the classroom. If you remember on one of the previous slides, our educator prep program was one of those audiences that we wanted to ensure were properly trained and understand what a high quality instructional material should look like. Pre-service teachers will be able to identify those materials prior to going into the classroom. We have begun to have those conversations with our IHLs here in the state of Mississippi, and we have also shared with them the new HQIM rubric, which will be shared at the end of this training. As your child begins to receive better instruction in the classroom, it is our hope that high-quality instructional materials will help them meet and or exceed the learning goals. Research has shown that high-quality instructional materials have a significant impact on student achievement, especially those students that are considered quote-unquote underserved. Now, this is something I want you all to definitely put a pin in because we will come back to this idea about serving underrepresented students. There's a resource that I will share with you during the training that you would be able to download and read at the local level. So if you remember, we've talked about this initiative being important for students. We've talked about it being important for educator prep programs. And now we're going to consider why this initiative is so critical for parents, but what they should see as we continue our push for high quality materials. So the question you may ask yourself is, what should parents see as a result of this new initiative in their child's backpack or as a result of their in-class instruction? In our English and math courses, students will begin to see real-world examples that promote what students are learning. As it relates to math homework, students are going to be asked to write out how they got their answers. These type of interactions are only available if they are modeled in the classroom. Henceforth, why teachers are being asked to become very knowledgeable about the selection of high-quality materials. You will begin to see as a parent that many of the texts that your students are going to bring home are going to be both fiction and nonfiction. As it relates to writing assignments, students are going to be required to provide additional evidence instead of just their opinion. So more text-based dependent questions will be asked of our students. In addition to this, students will continue to receive in their math classroom math homework that asks them to use different methods for solving the same problem. This very last point is something that's very indicative of our mathematical practices in grades K through 12. One very important piece of information that has also driven our work here at the State Department as it relates to high quality instructional materials is what takes place in the classroom relative to assignments, teacher lessons, and also student work samples. So a set-aside resource that if you have an opportunity to read, we definitely encourage you to do so, is the Opportunity Myth, offered by TNTP. This particular document looks at the alignment of student work given in the classroom, their expectations for high-quality instructional materials, again, the students' expectations for higher quality instructional materials and how instruction aligns with those expectations. This is definitely a worthwhile read for parents, students, and teachers. If you have a smartphone at this time, I'm going to ask you to take a brief moment to scan with your camera this quick QR code. If you do not have a smartphone and are unable to scan and access this document through this quick link, then you can Google The Opportunity Myth by TNTP. We encourage you at the local level to take some time to share, discuss, and have a conversation about what resonates with you as a result of reading this particular resource. So what have we done at the State Department as a response to this high quality instructional materials movement? Our initial steps at the State Department began in March of 2018, keeping in mind that our definition was crafted back in 2017. We brought in Dr. David Steiner, Executive Director of the Johns Hopkins Institute for Educational Policy, and the then Assistant Superintendent of Academic Content at the Louisiana Department of Education, Mrs. Rebecca Cochler. It was during this particular meeting we focused on our new HQIM initiative and developed in collaboration with CCSSO, the Department of Ed, the Office of Academic Education, on what high-quality instructional materials mean for students in Mississippi. We spent some time talking about how to increase teacher capacity, improving student outcomes, and also having equitable access for all children in the state. What you see here are a series of photos from the overall planning session and individual breakouts around high-quality materials throughout the day. Mississippi is one of 8 states in a national network that is focused on identifying high-quality resources for teachers. Our goal at the State Department is to begin, which we have already done so, an HQIM pilot. In that pilot, we have selected no less than 18 districts who sought to serve as HQIM pilot sites. Each one of them has agreed to implement those series of materials and research-informed systems to ensure professional learning and the fidelity thereof. So thus far, we have had a 3-day institute with student achievement partners, and we've also brought in curriculum coordinators, lead teachers, and administrators from the following 8 districts: Columbia, Cleveland, Harrison, Greenville, Hollis Springs, North Pike, Walthall, and Pontotoc. In this 3-day institute, we spent some time diving deep into the mathematical shifts and the mathematical content standards. Each one of these pilot sites will serve as HQIM hubs as we continue our work around this initiative. Now, this is definitely a partnership that a goal that we were not able to do on our own. So we did have strategic partners with a strategic partner, if you will, with Ed Reports. Ed Reports came in over a series of 6 to 8 months to kind of be able to support us in the development of a high-quality instructional material rubric. The purpose of that was to increase the capacity of our teachers, administrators, and leaders as they seek, identify, and demand high-quality instructional materials in the classroom and beyond. At this point in time, I will actually begin to go into what that rubric actually looks like. I will share with you the K through 8 HQIM rubric, the indicators, and the criteria which determine if indeed a material meets the demand of HQIM. This rubric is complemented by evidence guides that support the identification and the scoring for the materials in question. Those evidence guides were provided to our textbook review and selection committee. The rating, very important, through this process as it then becomes public record as to how a particular resource fared using our new resource, our resource fared based on our new rubric. Our HQIM tool supports a sequential review process through 3 gateways. Those 3 gateways reflect the importance of alignment to the fundamental design elements of the standards, and then considers other attributes as curriculum is recommended by educators. So let's look at the review process itself. In a nutshell, there are 3 steps. The first one is a required step where we review the indicators for Gateway 1. If the instructional materials meet or partially meet the expectations for Gateway 1, then that resource can be moved to step number 2. Step 2 is where we review the indicators for Gateway 2. In order to get out of Gateway 2, the instructional materials must meet the expectations for both Gateway 1 and 2 in order to move to Gateway 3. Gateway 3 includes a series of rating sheets that go in depth as it relates to all of the supplemental materials that are offered through that particular vendor. So let's look at each gateway individually, and then we'll look at a snapshot of the actual rubric itself. So Gateway 1 looks at focus and coherence, keeping in mind that in order to get out of Gateway 1, you must meet or partially meet these areas. So Gateway 1 looks again at focus and coherence. The question is the material appropriate for the grade level content, and is the majority of the class time spent on the major work of the grade? In order to continue out of Gateway 1, there must be evidence that there is enhanced focus, that there's enough content for an entire year and or block, and is it consistent with the progressions of the standards, vertically and horizontally. Gateway 2, if you remember, I spoke a little bit about the mathematical practices at the onset of this training, but Gateway 2 talks a little bit more about the rigor and its connection with the mathematical practices. And so for this gateway, reviewers are encouraged not to just look for the 8 mathematical practices listed at the front, the back, or in the middle of a resource or a textbook, but the question remains, is there evidence that the material connects the practices to the content? And do you see that throughout the resources that are in question? Rigor, in order to get out of Gateway 2, there must be evidence that reflects the balance of conceptual understanding, procedural skill, fluency, and application. Again, keep in mind, in order to get out of Gateway 2, Gateway 1 must be met or partially met, and Gateway 2 must be 100% met. Moving on to Gateway 3, this is a series of rating sheets that looks at all of the supplemental material that's in place with a particular vendor or its textbook resources. Rating sheet 1 looks at the use and design and how it facilitates students' learning. So that means that actually, if you're looking at rating sheet 1, the teacher is definitely encouraged to work out problems, to look at all of the supplemental material, look at the way that the lessons are developed, and moving on to rating sheet 2, spend some time looking at how teacher planning is impacted relative to that resource. Rating sheet 3 looks at assessment. Rating sheet 4, how is student learning differentiated, scaffolded, and then is there evidence that all students are supported throughout the use of this particular resource? Rating sheet 5 looks at the effective use of technology throughout that material. And rating sheet 6 digs a little bit deeper into the supplemental materials that are available for teachers. In conjunction with ED reports, we also identified some specific protocols that we wanted in place as it relates to Mississippi. We identified, as you can see, 4 additional indicators to go with Gateway 1, 2, and 3. So the indicators that we added just specifically for the state of Mississippi that we wanted for our resources is evidence for incorporating a glossary, footnotes, recordings, pictures, and or other features that aid students and teachers in the use of the book. We also added an additional indicator that looks at how assessments are embedded throughout the entire resource at a variety of knowledge levels. And then we also looked at what types of assessments are being used. Are they performance-based? What types of questions are being asked? Are they research-based? Do students have an opportunity to investigate and or develop projects? And again, are these assessments embedded throughout the content, and do they assess our students' learning? And then we added an additional rating sheet in Mississippi that looks at whether the supporting materials reinforce the core instruction and provide ample and a variety of resources for our students. So as you all can see, we did our due diligence as it relates to bringing in ed reports and developing a Mississippi-specific rubric for evaluating, validating, and selecting those resources that are on our textbook adoption list and or in use in our classrooms. So one of the things that I shared with you all is that at the onset of each state textbook review process, all of our committee members are required to provide substantial evidence as to how they rate a particular resource. This is just a snapshot of what those evidence guides looks like. But as you can see, for each one of the indicators, they are provided with a series of questions that ask them specifically about that particular indicator. So for example, on indicator 1D, where the indicator is the amount of content designed for one grade level and is it viable for one academic school year? Does it foster coherence between the grades? The type of questions that our review team ask to themselves and then collectively is, can students master all of the grade level standards in the time frame that has been stated in the resource? Is there too much or too little material to cover in an academic year? Was there any information that was learned from the publisher's orientation that might be valuable for this indicator? And if so, provide that information in the report. And so here's just a snapshot of the actual evidence guides that goes with each one of the indicators under every gateway as it relates to reviewing materials with our rubric. As our review committee continues their work, again, they are given a point system to determine if they meet or partially meet Gateway 1 and then the evidence therein. Now, in order for them to provide evidence, the review committee definitely must go through the actual text, work problems, look at some of the assessments, and then, of course, if there's an investigative project that's included, they must do that as well, providing evidence of key pages. The exact same thing takes place for Gateway 2 as it relates to rigor and the mathematical practices, and for Gateway 3 as well. So you may be asking yourself, with a rubric that's so robust, what vendors or publishers actually made the cut for our 2019 math textbook adoption list? And so what you see here on the current slide represents those textbooks that made the cut for grades K through 5 and those resources and textbooks that made the cut for grades 6 through 8. Definitely encourage each of you that have an opportunity to do so to access the large copy of the HQIM rubric. It's very easy to access. If you go to our homepage at www.k12.org, you click on the link that says Directory, and then you will click on the link that says Office of Textbooks. And once you are there, you will find the 2018 Instructional Review Rubric for Mathematics. Definitely want to encourage you to download this rubric. Evaluate the resources and materials that are currently in use in your classroom, and have some conversation at the local level, asking yourself if the materials that we are currently using meets the high definition of what the state has put out relative to high quality instructional materials. That would definitely be your homework assignment or your number one priority for your to-do list as a result of today's training. The slide here represents the Mississippi core team that is working on this initiative. Dr. Debbie Burson represents our educator prep programs. Myself, Dr. Marla Davis, I work in the Office of Secondary Ed and also provide supports to the Office of Elementary Education and Textbooks. Dr. Nathan Oakley is our Chief Academic Officer overseeing this initiative. Chauncey Spears, he is our Director for Textbook and Textbook Procurement. And Dr. Tanette Smith, the Executive Director for Elementary Education and Reading. Because this initiative is so large and definitely will take more hands on deck, we've also been assigned a coach from CCSSO, which is the Chief Council of State School Officers. We definitely encourage you all to share this information with educators, principals, and teachers at the local level as we continue our push for high quality instructional materials across the state of Mississippi. Thank you.